My Tony Robbins story. About 10 years ago, I let my curiosity get the best of me, and I started listening to Tony Robbins cassettes and started listening to Tony Robbins CDs and working his workbooks and so on and so forth. And I'm not going to talk about all of my Tony Robbins experiences, most of which were very positive. I happen to like Tony Robbins, by the way. I won't talk about the goal setting and some of the other things that he's revealed. I'm just going to talk about one technique that I started using. I don't mean to cut Tony's revenue stream, but I think a lot of his technology, as he says, his techniques are now in the public domain, so to speak. One of those techniques is matching. Matching of expressions. You develop a rapport with other people by matching their facial expressions. So if they frown like this when they talk, you frown like this when they talk. They tilt their head like this when they talk, you tilt your head like this when they talk. They lean back, you lean back. I sit upright, you sit upright. They get loud, you get loud. If they whisper, you whisper. That's known as matching, and I started trying it out just as a game for myself. And 3 months later, I unexpectedly was called into the office, and I was asked to interview for a position, and I went from being a common worker to a member of the management team. And initially I had to share an office with somebody, but eventually I get my own office, and I had a receptionist. The receptionist I shared with a couple of other people, but I was right uptown, and I got a substantial pay raise on top of that. Now, some of that was circumstance. We worked for kind of a rinky-dink organization, and talent, when it would surface within our organization, we usually leave. There had been a recent exodus of talent. The economy was doing really well, and smart people fled, and people with options, they managed to leave. And it was kind of like musical chairs. I was sitting by a chair when the music stopped, and there I was. I got a substantial promotion. And I told my superiors right off the bat I did not want to create a lot of work so that I could monitor a lot of unnecessary work but secure my job position. What I wanted to do is be so good at what I did that I worked my way out of a position. And they kind of chuckled at that and raised their eyebrows and voiced their approval. And with the help of a lot of good people, we made some good changes. We centralized some things. We put some checks and balances in so that it wasn't just one person monitoring them. It was a lot of the controls were decentralized. A lot of other things were streamlined. I won't go into the details, but all in all, we did a pretty good job, and we made some great changes. And I did more or less eliminate the need for my job. And there were still some things that needed to be done, but they could have been distributed to other people. And I made a note of that. I'd become something of a neutron, in that I had neither a positive or negative charge. I just contributed weight to the nucleus, I guess you could say. And at about the same time, there had been some financial mistakes were made. It wasn't scandalous. It wasn't Enron or something like that. I don't want to enhance the story for good storytelling's sake, but some people made some bad decisions, and it meant that some people had to go. That's all there was to it. So, what, excuse me just a sec. Oh, that's good. That's even better. What management did, This is kind of like a certain movie, but what management did is they were not real smooth when it came to firing people. They were not real delicate. They were insensitive. And this place had a history of being insensitive around terminations. They tended to fire people on Friday afternoons, give them a check with all their benefits, kind of, it's not really a consolation prize, it's not really a severance package, it's just what's owed you, but you get it all at once, and Friday afternoon you can leave, and they would have a locksmith waiting in the wings to change the lock and then distribute just a few select keys to certain people. And of course, I was never one of those people who got the first round of keys. Originally I had a key to the office, as did a lot of people, but when you fire someone, you have to change that lock and redistribute the keys. And then the water cooler conversation for days to come was, did you get a key? No, I didn't get a key. Did you get a key? Yes, I did get a key. You got a key? How did you get a key? And it was a lot of hard feelings and acrimony, and just a toxic environment was created. It really was, and I don't think the upper management wanted to do this. In fact, I know they did not want to do this, but their own ineptitude, they created hard feelings. And they created a very hostile environment. But there are lessons to be learned from that. One thing is everybody would show up for work on Friday, because if they're going to get fired, they didn't want to hear about it secondhand. They wanted to know about it first. So, people who tend to call in sick on Mondays and Fridays, well, not here. We had perfect attendance on Fridays because people want to see if they're going to get fired. And that's one of the lessons there. The other thing, they say it's better to be feared than loved. I don't know about that. I don't know. What I will say, though, is it's easier to be feared than to be loved. I've seen all those people, the management, instill a sense of fear into a lot of people. And they did it with very little effort. When you think about how much effort would have been involved to get them to be loved, well, that would take a lot of effort. But fear, they did it. They did that effortlessly, possibly even accidentally, but they created a fearful, hostile, vicious environment. In the process of creating this hostile environment, and it was hostile even before the downsizing started. It had always been rude. It had always been not a happy place to work. It just had this constant, I don't want to use expletives, but the constant middle finger attitude towards just about everybody in the world in general. That it permeated everything from the water cooler to the copy machine. It's just one of those places. But when they started to downsize, it got a lot worse. And at the time, I would tell stories to my friends that Hollywood has it all wrong. They think it's the bad people are the oil barons and the people who wear Prada and the heads of movie studios. They're the backstabbers. What I witnessed is people who would backstab you when there's nothing at stake, where not even nickels at stake. They're just going to stab you right in the back and twist the metal just to keep their skills sharp. That was a little bit frightening, and I know I'm getting a little bit away from Tony, but that is something I learned. But I also learned that management once again created this terribly hostile environment because inadvertently they made everyone competitors against one one another. And they made it known that there was not enough work to go around. So people got very vicious. By and large, I stayed out of the office politics as much as I could. But you can only be Switzerland for so long. If you want to be Switzerland, you kind of have to be in Switzerland, protected by mountains and Swiss chocolate and great clocks and things like that. Maybe you could be Switzerland. But as neutral as I wanted to be, I'm not saying I got pulled into all the office politics, but some things got very personal with me. And a lot of what I wanted to do had been done. And I have to skip on the details, but it got personal at some point. And I know what they wanted, the management, they wanted to do. It was to get me to quit, and they would make it so unappealing that I would just leave. And because I took it so personally, I refused to cooperate. And I said, I'll just let them pay me unemployment. They didn't want to pay me unemployment, as much for personal reasons as for anything else. And eventually they said, you no longer have this job that you worked yourself out of. Thanks for the memories, but what have you done for us lately? So we're going to do this. We're either going to offer you one of these two jobs that no one in their right mind would take, and to this day I don't think anyone in their right mind is occupying either of those jobs. Or we'll offer you a third option. You can work 3 days a week. That seemed like an odd option to me, but understand at one level it had become personal, and they wanted me to go so they wouldn't have to pay unemployment. Plus, they just wanted me to see me go. And I said, okay, I'll work 3 days a week. And I had some other things going on, so at first that worked out okay. I was still getting benefits, and I was able to work this other job, work more hours at the other job. But what they did almost immediately is they would start making requests. So even though I'm working 3 days a week, they'd say, can you just do this one training? Can you just go to this one meeting? Can you just do this one orientation? And I would make exceptions, and then I made another exception, and before long I was only working 3 days a week for 24 hours. I was once again had a full-time caseload. This was I think I used the term toxic already. At some point I had considered maybe I should be in management, and I did have a moment where I looked up at what that entailed, and I said, this isn't sour grapes. Those grapes are poison. This place is bad news. So I started becoming the anti-Tony, and I didn't take it to too great an extreme. I mean, someone said that if father had cancer, I wouldn't laugh out loud, or everybody was chuckling about something, I wouldn't cry. I didn't take it to that extreme, but I was not matching, and I was not trying to build rapport. Not at all. I developed a reputation as being very aloof, non-responsive, and whereas I thought it was a hostile environment before, even people who I felt were allies they were also sticking the knife in my back. But I didn't care. I wasn't working on the rapport thing anymore. Just wasn't happening. So something, they were taking full advantage of my part-time status and getting full-time work, and then something happened. Once more we had an exodus of talent, as those things happen, and exodus of non-talent too, I might add. And I was offered a position at a satellite off-site, out of the office position. And I jumped on it, and I'd still have to swing by the office once or twice a week and see some of the same people, but I knew from experience that this would, I love this term, allow me to fly under the radar. I mean, I would be off the charts most of the time, and plus I knew most people's schedules, so I could avoid some of the really nasty people just coming in at certain select times and swinging by the office for whatever I had to do. I could, time that very well and just minimize face time with certain people. But so that in that respect, that job was good, and I have to admit there were people in upper management who had frankly done me wrong, who at this point they did make up for some of it. So we won't go into the details again, but they did help me out a little bit in the transition. And I felt better about this. I wasn't constantly going to this dreary workplace, and I started doing my Tony Robbins matching once more. And I replayed everybody's facial characteristics and tones of voice and everything, and I would kind of like ambush people when they were busy or standing by the copy machine or have an armload of stuff, and start being enthusiastic with them there. And my old reputation of being the whatever that reputation was when I was doing all the Tony Robbins matching, it returned. And by and large, applying Tony's matching techniques, I was able to I was able to salvage a happy ending to the story, at least this term. I decided at some point I was going to leave. I had plans to possibly travel to another part of the country, but I can't emphasize enough just how hostile this place was. And not only did I get a lot of well wishes and a few nice goodbyes, they actually had a small party for me, that sounds odd, but this is an organization where almost every single person, 90+%, leaves under bad terms. I mean, it's just that kind of place. And they threw a party for me. And one of the things I later learned is there was this discussion about how they were to fund this, because we're talking a few $100s, because nobody ever received a party to go away before. It just was like, what do you mean? We don't have that. Where are we going to put this in the books? Who's going to file this under which department? That's how unusual going away parties were at this place. It just wasn't done that people would leave under good circumstances. But I applied Tony's matching techniques at the right times, and happy ending, I got a party with Chinese food. So I know some people say that the whole matching thing, that was actually the public domain for a long time, that the great salesmen have always been doing this. They've been doing this for generations of matching people as the used car salesman. And it worked to a given extent. Here's a postscript to the story. Okay? Postscript. I did not travel to another part of the country. I did not move. I did travel to other parts of the country. I did not move, but I stayed around and I started some entrepreneurial activities, all of which flopped. Now there's stories, now there are times. Eventually, I had to put my tail between my legs and go back into the workplace. And I was able to land a job as a mental health counselor. And I immediately tried to do the Tony Robbins techniques of matching people's facial expressions, voice characteristics. And I had to cut it out right away, because one thing I learned is that mentally ill people, their senses are sharp. And a lot of them pick up on things other people don't pick up on. Especially if someone's slightly paranoid. They know that someone's playing a game with them. They know that I was accused a couple times of mimicking someone, and the truth was I was mimicking them. I was matching their facial expressions. So I toned that down a lot. And what did seem to work well with the people with mental illnesses is maintaining a flat, neutral expression. That demeanor seems to work much better than any sort of anything that's even a little bit manipulative, because there's some deep issues of trust, and their senses are extremely sharp. So that's my Tony Robbins matching story. I have the utmost respect for Tony Robbins, and maybe sometimes I'll share my other Tony Robbins stories with you.